Aloha, Kimi です。
This is episode 90. Yay! We are almost at 100. I can't believe it. That's pretty exciting. Welcome back to another episode. Today I want to talk about something a little different. We are going to talk about Japanese hospitals. If you are living in Japan, or even if you are just visiting Japan, going to a hospital can feel a little intimidating. You might think, what is going to happen? Where do I go? Do I need an appointment? Will they speak English? So I thought it might be helpful to explain what actually happens when you go to a hospital in Japan. Of course, every hospital is a little different, but if you know the general process, you can have a better idea of what to expect. And hopefully that makes it less scary. Or maybe I'll make you even more nervous. I don't know. But anyway, let's talk about the reality of going to a Japanese hospital. Number 1. You usually choose the department first. One of the biggest differences I noticed between Japan and Australia or New Zealand is how you choose a doctor. So in Australia and New Zealand, you often start with a GP or general practitioner. You go to your GP first, and if you need to see a specialist, your GP may refer you to a specialist, right? In Japan, it's a little different. You often choose the medical department yourself. For example, if you have a cold or a fever, you might go to naika. So naika is internal medicine. If you have a problem with your eyes, ganka. Ophthalmology. If you have a problem with your ear, nose, or throat, jibika. So jibika is ENT. And if you have a problem with your bone, joint, muscles, or something like back pain, you might go to seikeigeka. Orthopedics. So you might need to think, what kind of problem do I have? And then choose the right department. Number 2. A hospital doesn't always mean a big hospital. And here's another thing that's useful to understand. In Japan, we often say byouin, which is hospital, byouin. But when Japanese people say they are going to a hospital, it doesn't necessarily mean a huge hospital with hundreds of doctors and many departments. There are many smaller medical clinics in Japan. For example, naika clinic or gaka clinic. These can be relatively small. You can still say byouin ni ikimasu. And we don't say you guys say see a doctor, but we don't use the doctor mean ikimasu. We don't say that. I'm going to the hospital. Even if it's actually a small local clinic. Large hospitals are a little different because they have many different departments inside the small hospital. Number 3. Do you need an appointment? This depends on the hospital or clinic. Some places require appointment. Some smaller clinics accept patients without an appointment. And some places have a system where you need to arrive in the morning and take a number. Basically, it's first come, first serve. Some popular clinics, like children clinics, for example, can be extremely difficult to get into. They might open same day online appointment at 7 a.m. and sometimes by just 1 minute past 7, all the appointments are already gone. I missed so many appointments. So it's a good idea to check the hospital's website before you go. Number 4. Medical questionnaire. Okay, so you've chosen a hospital and you've made an appointment. You arrived at the hospital. What's next? Usually, if it's your first visit, you need to fill out a Monshin-hyou, a medical questionnaire. You may be asked for things like your name, your address, your date of birth, your symptoms, when your symptoms to start, and sometimes questions about COVID, influenza, or whether you've recently been in contact with someone who was sick. And here's the difficult part for some foreigners. Many clinics still use a paper forms, and yes, sometimes they are written only in Japanese. So you may need to read hiragana, katakana, and kanji. So large hospitals have English forms or translation support, but you can't always expect that. Even at a large hospital near where I live, the medical questionnaire is in Japanese. So if you don't have someone who can help you, this part can be quite difficult. Number 5. Seeing the doctor. After you fill out the questionnaire, you wait for your turn. The doctor calls you in. The doctor might say, どうしましたか? What's wrong? Or どんな症状がありますか? So 症状 means symptoms. So what symptom do you have? Or you might say, 頭が痛いです. I have a headache. Or お腹が痛いです. I have a stomachache. That we already ran that couple of episodes before. So please listen that episode first. Then いつからですか? Since when? And you can say 2日前からです. So 2日前. So for 2 days. Or 昨日からです. Since yesterday. So then, depending on your symptoms, the doctor may do some tests. Number 6, your name and date of birth. There is one thing you should be prepared for. When you have a medical test, such as a blood test, the staff will usually confirm your identity. They might ask you your name and date of birth. This is also common in other countries, of course, but you need to be able to say your information in Japanese. So, for example, your birthday is July 13th, 1990. You can say year first. So, 1990年7月 July 13th 13日です。So, 1990年7月13日です。Like that. And if you have a long foreign name, this can sometimes be a little complicated. If you are visiting Japan, it's safest to use the name exactly as it appears on your passport. If you are living in Japan, you should use the name as it appears on your Japanese residence card. And if you have a middle name, make sure you know how your name is registered in Japan. Japanese paperwork doesn't always follow the same name order you're used to. So that's something worth checking before you need medical treatment. Number 7. After the examination. Okay, so you've seen the doctor, maybe you've had some tests, and now you're finished. If the doctor wants you to take medicine, you usually receive a 処方箋, a prescription. You pay for your medical treatment at the hospital and receive the prescription. Then you take the prescription to a pharmacy. In many cases, there is a pharmacy very close to the hospital. Sometimes there's even one right next door. You give them your prescription, wait for your medicine, pay for it, and you are done. So the basic flow is 受付、問診票、診察、検査、会計、処方箋、and 薬局. So that means reception, medical questionnaire, consultation, prescription, and pharmacy. Once you understand the flow, it becomes much less mysterious, right? Number 8. What about English? Now probably one of the biggest questions for English speakers. Will the doctor speak English? And honestly, not always. Actually, probably less than you might expect. Of course, there are many Japanese doctors who speak English, but in my experience, I wouldn't assume that every doctor can have a conversation in English. Japanese doctors know a lot of medical English. You see English medical terms in medical records, textbooks, and sometimes on documents, so they may know a lot of medical vocabulary. But knowing medical vocabulary and being able to have a natural conversation in English are two different things. Sometimes the doctor may know the medical word but have difficulty explaining everything in English. My husband has experienced this himself. When he needs to go to a hospital by himself, sometimes we have to look for a hospital where someone can communicate with him in English. Usually we can find someone who can communicate enough to get the important information across, but it isn't always easy. So if you need medical care in Japan and you don't speak Japanese yet, I recommend checking the hospital's website beforehand and asking whether they have English speaking staff or not. So that's basically what a Japanese hospital can be like. It might sound complicated when I explain all of these steps, but once you know the general flow, it's actually quite straightforward. The important thing is that you don't have to imagine the worst. You can prepare a little before you go. You can check which department you need. You can check whether you need an appointment. You can prepare your name, address, date of birth, and insurance information. And if you don't speak Japanese well, you can check whether the hospital has English support. Hopefully, knowing a little about the reality of Japanese hospitals makes the idea of going to one a little less scary. And if you ever have to go to a Japanese hospital, I hope you remember this episode and think, okay, I know how this works. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast and leave a review or comment. And if you're looking for a Japanese teacher, I also teach Japanese on italki. So you can find my italki profile in the description. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. じゃあね。バイバイ。